Hey guys, welcome to week 4. This week in biology, we're going to actually be looking at ecology and an introduction to ecology. So let's start out with what is ecology. And so we're basically just going to be studying our planet, is what we're going to be focusing on with this unit. It's going to be the study of the interactions among organisms, and then also the organisms, the study of between the organisms and their environment. So not only is it the study of the interactions among, let's say the interactions among humans, the interactions among deer, it's also the interactions of those deer with their physical environment that they live in. So in order to talk about ecology, we actually have to start out by talking about what is an environment. So for yourself, you have to think of an environment that you may live in. I'm going to ask a question really quick. Okay, so what is your environment? Well, an environment is all external factors that determine conditions surrounding an organism. So in order to have an environment, it needs to be made up of biotic and abiotic factors. So, for example, let's take a look at this picture. This picture is an environment. It is made up of biotic and abiotic factors. We're going to get into the definitions of what biotic and abiotic mean. But the first thing is, what does bio mean? Okay, well, hopefully you wrote down what you believe bio means. Well, bio means living. Bio means life. Think about biology. So biotic is basically stuff that is living. So in our picture here, we have biotic, and biotic is actually going to be, well, on your left side here, it's all sorts of living things. You have all sorts of bio, which means living, things. And then you also have abiotic. So putting that A in the beginning of it actually means non-living. So we've got our abiotic on this left or this right side here. It's rock, it's water. You notice there are no fish in this picture or anything like that. But over here for biotic, you have birds, you have trees, you have plants, all sorts of different things. And then our environment is this middle. It's made up of water, it's made up of rock, which are both abiotic, but it's also made up of birds and grass. So here's some definitions. Biotic factors must, in an environment, include all of its living parts. Plants, animals, bacteria. So think about some biotic factors on that picture we were just looking at. Biotic factors that are important to that heron. Okay. This might include the fish. It might include other species that compete with the herons for food or space. Some abiotic factors are the non-living parts of the environment. Water, air, rock. The heron could also be impacted by abiotic factors. So besides just the water, air, and rocks, what specifically about the water might the heron be impacted by? If the water is too hot, is that going to be a good living condition for the heron? If the air is too, smoky, is that going to be healthy for our heron? The heron is the bird in the photo before. Water quality, temperature, humidity, all sorts of things that can make up abiotic factors. So we've already talked about this as a group, so we're just going to go through our next part, which is actually just going to be ecological levels. So now that we know what an environment is, we know what biotic and abiotic environment, we've got over biotic factors. So those are all things that make up your environment. But let's get specific into the levels in ecology that actually make up, our world. So this is just an outline here. We have individual, population, community, ecosystem, bio, and biosphere. But we need definitions. We need to know what those things mean. So we first start out with our species. So a species is just a group of organisms that can breed and reproduce or produce offspring. So we could have a species that is a horse. Horses can reproduce, they can breed, they can produce offspring that can also do the same thing. You could have wolves, same type of thing. So there's our species. So let's think about our Lion King example. Think about a species from Lion King. And I'm going to ask you to write that in the box. Great. So many different species in Lion King example. Then you have a population. So a population is a group of individuals that belong to the same species and live in the same area. So the species is just your one individual, but a population is a group of the same species and they live in the same area. Okay? So you have to have them near each other so that they can continue to reproduce and can continue to produce offspring. So there's our population. So we know about population. So now we're going to move a little bit larger. You get into community. So community is a group of different populations that live in a place together with their environment. So different populations. Let's go back to our Lion King example. Think about that clip that we watched. What is a community that you see in our Lion King example? So you want to make sure you have different populations, so therefore different species that live in an environment together, okay? So then we go up a little bit higher. We have our community. It's made of different species, different populations living in an area. Our ecosystem is actually the interaction of living and non-living things. So if we go back to our pond example, we had our ecosystem where we had the bird that lived in an area with rocks and water. So what about our ecosystem from our Lion King example? Think about what our ecosystem would have been from our Lion King example. Go ahead and put that answer in. So then our biome is getting even bigger. So our biome is much larger than our ecosystem. It's basically just a large community of plants and animals that occupy a distinct region. So in our Lion King example, we're in Africa. So Africa creates a very large biome. It's not just the area of animals that are living in that small little ecosystem that we had for Lion King. It's going to be that entire area that all has very similar, plants, animals, but they're just very they're further apart. Okay, but it's still going to be very similar to what we have here, but it's just going to be like we might have this area right here, and that's a specific biome. It's going to have similar weather, it's going to have similar plants, similar animals, but our animals down here aren't going to be able to necessarily breed with the animals up here, but they're still part of the same biome. Okay, so it's much larger than our ecosystem. And our last one is biosphere, and the biosphere consists of all life on Earth and all parts of Earth in which life exists. So, an example of the biosphere is literally Earth. So Earth is a biosphere. Okay? So our check for understanding, you're going to be doing this in a discussion board, and you're going to explain the differences between population and species, and then between population and community, okay? And then you also have an activity that we're going to be doing at the end of class as well, so don't forget about that.